I told you. Catching bass is one of my favorite things to do on the planet. As a matter of fact, it is my favorite thing to do. Got him. Is that a big one? Yes. We are on a bite today, folks. There's one. Another nice one. Oh my gosh. There's another big one with him. There's like 2 of them. And that's a big one right there. Now the topic of today's video is fishing around rocks. Rocks are a staple feature in basically any sort of reservoir, pond, creek, river, or stream out there. Almost every single place that y'all fish has rocks in some capacity as a form of structure down there on the bottom. And so what are some of the top lures that you fish around rocky situations? And of course, what are some do's and don'ts around those rocky rocks? My name's Tyler, and let's talk about it. Rocks. You know, I know one thing to be true about rocks. They're pretty hard, not soft. Thanks for watching. Now let's talk about some of my do's and don'ts when fishing around rocks. I'm glad we got that on the first take because I don't have another rock. The first thing that I want to help you guys understand when fishing around rocks is that rocks present what I'm going to call a sticky or a snaggy situation. And what I mean by those 2 funky terms is that they present an opportunity for your lure to get stuck down there on the bottom. And nobody wants that. Rocks come in my opinion, at number 2 in terms of the most snaggy and sticky situations. Number 1, of course, being actual sticks. You know, lay down trees, bushes, logs. Those are by far the most susceptible areas to get your lure snagged on the bottom and lose those lures. Rocks come in at number 2, definitely quite a bit below sticks and bushes, but they're still up there in terms of getting your lure stuck down there, which of course is going to change the way that you select your lures, as we'll talk about here in a second. Now the type of rocky situations that I'm going to be covering, at least in terms of the fish catches later on in this video, is going to be what I call the highland lake type rock. So it's the lake behind me right here. We have a little cliff behind me. We got some chunk rock over here. You saw the kind of slate rock, limestone rock that I just threw in the water. That's the kind of rock that I'm talking about. So that is what I mean by rocks. I know up north in Minnesota, New York, you guys have rocks as well, but oftentimes, at least when I think of Minnesota, rocks are more like a boulder situation. So a big round boulder that's kind of like forming almost a minefield of boulders. What pops into my head immediately is Lake Mille Lacs. There's just tons of offshore rock out there, but not really the type of rock that I'm talking about. This entire lake here, Lake Whitney, has tons of rock. Basically, the whole thing is just covered in rock. So in this type of situation that I'm fishing today, I would say this is the more snaggy type of rock situation. If you're fishing around big boulders that are kind of separated from one another, I'm not going to say you're not going to get snagged in those, but in terms of snaggy situations, this is the most snaggy type of rock right here. The rocks that have crevices and points and little humps, spongy type rocks, this is the type of stuff that's going to snag your lures a lot more than boulders will. Now the second thing that I want to talk about when it comes to fishing in a rocky lake or a rocky situation, I'll say pond, lake, river, stream, is that the fish are going to usually be positioning themselves to feed on the rocks that are slightly different. So if you're going down the bank and you just see a 45-degree rock wall and nothing is different about the entire wall, either that you can see with your eyes or that you see on your electronics, or as you fish down the bank, you don't notice anything in the water that looks different, most likely numbers of fish are not going to be there and the biggest fish are not going to be there. I found that the biggest fish in your areas are going to be on a little depression in the rock. So if the bank is going like this, kind of 45-degree chunk rock, and then all of a sudden it dips in and back out like a little cut in the bank, that's where I'm going to find some of my bigger fish. Any differentiation in that rock, whether it goes from maybe it's a whole thing of chunk rock and then all of a sudden it's a little stretch of pea gravel or a little stretch of even bigger chunk rock, that's where I think is worth spending more time, is by finding areas that have differentiation in the rock situation. That rhymed. Biggest thing for me is that on a lake like this, when almost everything is rock, sometimes those bass are going to want to be on whatever is not rock in that lake. So y'all are going to see in the tons of big fish catches. Make sure you guys stay tuned to the end. We have some awesome fish catches showing exactly what I'm about to talk about. And that is that these fish in today's situation are not on the rock. They are on the sticks in the trees, which there's very few of them, which makes them very patternable. They are on those little stick-ups and laydowns that are just off the bank, because that's a different thing than the rest of the bank is. I cannot stress differentiation around rocks enough. Whether I'm talking about different rocks or sticks, docks, laydowns, anything like that that sticks out from those rocks, oftentimes fish will position themselves strategically on those to feed and ambush their prey, and it becomes incredibly patternable, as y'all will see later on in this video, when I catch 1 or 2 fish, making it, in my mind, a pattern on those laydown sticks around rocks. Then I can literally just put the trolling motor on high, and I can just fish the areas that I see that are like that, give myself a more high percentage chance of catching more fish and big fish, as y'all will see. One more thing that at least I've found in most rocky situations is that rocks are accompanied by clear water. I found a few situations where you find rocks in a very muddy or stained body of water, but at least for me, in most situations that rocks are present, clear water is also present, and so that also changes your lure selection from lures that make a whole lot of noise, a lot of vibration, really give off a pulse, and of course your more flashy colors, black and blues. You're going to want to mute everything down and go back to your naturals and your softer presentations in order to get these oftentimes tricky fish to bite. When it comes to spring fishing, most of the time I have tougher days on clear rocky bodies of water than I do on dirty, shallow, not rocky bodies of water, because those fish oftentimes just feel more comfortable in their areas. They can't see you, you can't see them. Oftentimes those fish bite better. But I think that these deep, clear, rocky lakes really give an opportunity to catch some giant bass, as I had several huge bass, I'm talking ones over 10 pounds, follow my swim bait today. And speaking of swim baits, let's talk about my top 5 lures for rocky situations. Number 1 on my list for lures to fish around rocks has been and probably always will be a crankbait. When I first started bass fishing, I hardly ever threw a crankbait around the rockiest lake that I know that I grew up on, Lake Travis, because I was always afraid of getting my crankbait stuck on the bottom. For some reason, I just had bad experience with it, or the few times that I've tried, maybe I didn't even try it, it was just a mental thing. I thought if I throw a crankbait, it's got treble hooks, tons of hooks, it'll snag on the rocks, and I'm gonna lose my crankbaits. And with no skill and no forethought, yes, you're going to lose some of your crankbaits. But if you have any kind of fishing skill, a crankbait is the best way, in my opinion, to cover water and catch fish in rocky situations. The whole goal of a crankbait is to deflect off of cover, and what better to deflect off of than a super hard, like I said earlier in the video, substance such as a rock. Now, of course, around rock, I'm hardly ever going to reel my crankbait so fast that that crankbait is just like digging into the rocks. I'm going to reel it just fast enough where it gets down into that strike zone and kind of nicks the bottom and bounces off. The harder you reel, and of course the deeper crankbait you use for a certain situation, you may have a higher chance of getting stuck. But if you know exactly how deep those fish are in your rocks and you pick the right crankbait that dives to that depth, you're gonna find some incredible success. Now, colors when it comes to crankbaits, of course, any kind of natural shad color. I have not found many crankbaits in bluegill colors to work very well in clear water. Now, again, disclaimer, I don't know everything. I don't know your situation exactly. I'm just saying what's worked for me is any kind of shad variation, so a clear, a purple, chartreuse and white. This is a lavender shad color. Really, any kind of shad imitation color works really well for me around rocks in clear water. Now, lure number 2 and the rest of this order are not necessarily going to be in any specific order of importance. They're really just going to be my next favorite lures when it comes to rocky situations. And so lure number 2 on my list is going to be the jig. I have made tons and tons of videos on how to fish basically every different style and type of jig. You got flipping jigs, skipping jigs, grass jigs, wood jigs, and one of my favorites is the football jig and the finesse football jig. Now, one of the reasons why I love the football jig, especially in rocks and just really jigs in general, is that they get down to the strike zone and they are relatively more easy than a Texas rig, and I guess not as easy as a Carolina rig, but in terms of lures that are in one cohesive package like this, they're relatively easy to keep on and near the bottom, which is exactly where you want to be dragging your jig for these rocky bass. Oh, it popped out. That is so cool. That was a fish, I knew it. Wanted that football jig, yeesh. In rocky bodies of water, crawfish are a staple in a bass's diet, and so in my opinion, the jig with a crawfish trailer is the best way to go to imitate a crawfish. Now, when picking a jig color, of course, you want to pick a natural color. So if the crawfish are red, you pick a more red style of jig. If the crawfish are a green pumpkin or a watermelon, you pick that general color. My favorite, no matter where I am in the country, and really no matter the water clarity, is going to be peanut butter and jelly. I love this color, and this here is the Outcast Tackle I forgot exactly what the name of this football jig is, but it's the brand new one that we just launched. I should know that. Now you may be thinking, Tyler, a jig is gonna get stuck in those rocks because it really gets down there on the bottom. You're dragging that jig head and it's gonna get wedged in a rocky situation. That is possible if you are not selecting your jig head weight correctly. Now, I don't believe I have a video on selecting your jig head weight, but really you just want to fish the proper weight to get the lure down there into the strike zone and gives you the best possibility and chance of keeping it on the bottom, but not too heavy that it'll get snagged very easily. So a 1 ounce jig in 2 foot of water, that sucker is staying on the bottom, but the problem is it's gonna be too heavy and it's gonna wedge itself in those rocks. And so to me, 1/2 ounce jig is really good for anything 15 feet and shallower. If you're shallower than 6 feet, I go with a 3/8 ounce. And then if you're any shallower than that, oftentimes I'm not throwing a jig. I'm throwing a shaky head, as I'll talk about in a second, or any kind of Texas rig. A jig for me is really for those rocky, clear water situations. Anything more than 8 to 10 feet deep, that's where the football jig really excels. And if you guys are curious about how to fish each individual lure that I'm talking about, I'm not really gonna go super deep into it in this video. I have instructional videos on I think every single one of these. So I will link with the lure, the Tackle Warehouse links, and of course the rod, reel, line with all of these lures. I will also link an instructional video that I have for each one of these because I'm all about helping you guys catch more fish and not only be more efficient on the water, be more efficient with the time you spend on YouTube. That way you're not searching around for all sorts of crummy bass fishing videos. You're gonna find the best ones here on TRF. And they're linked in the video description. Lure number 3 on my list, and a very, very important one when it comes to catching these finicky, clear water rocky bass, is going to be the shaky head. I don't know if there's a better finesse lure for fishing around rocks than a shaky head, especially one with a small ball head like this one right here. Hopefully y'all can see that. I've got it here as almost all the time I do on a Strike King Fat Baby Finesse Worm, and I just have such supreme confidence in a shaky head more than a Wacky Rig Cinco, more than a weightless fluke, more than a drop shot around rocks, because much like the jig, the shaky head doesn't take very long to get to the bottom, and as long as you are dragging it very slowly or hopping it very slowly, the shaky head just catches some dang fish. I mean, you look at any sort of tournament results from an Ozark Lake, Lake of the Ozarks, Table Rock, really any lakes that have rocks and clear water, a shaky head excels. The shaky head is just a fish catcher, that's all I can say. Now, lure category number 4, and probably the most versatile category, of course with the most options to fish around rocky situations, is going to be the swim baits. Like I mentioned, I think rocks are accompanied by clear water probably 80% of the time, and in clear water, swim baits excel. I don't care if you're talking about a little swim bait like the Rage Swimmer on a jig head like this, or a bigger 6-inch swim bait like this one. Swim baits just catch fish around rocks. I think where a swim bait really excels is fishing in those areas that you might be tempted to skip over. Now, like I said, and later in this video, you're gonna see tons of fish catches, and I found out exactly what the fish were on, so I don't need to waste time fishing the open areas in between those stick-ups. But in a scenario where you show up to a brand new lake or a lake you haven't been to in a while, and you don't know exactly what the fish are sitting on, let's say there's a few laydowns and a few differentiations in the type and style of rocks as you go down the bank, and you want to fish maybe the shaky head or the jig or the crankbait around those more different type areas, that the more secluded things that the fish could be on, the high percentage stuff. The swim bait is a great lure to pick up as you're covering water and burning down the bank. I just don't know if there's a better lure than a swim bait. Just like clear water goes along with rocks, shad almost always go along with rocks as well. I don't care if you're talking about big gizzard shad or small little thread fin, tiny little minnows. That is where the swim bait category comes into play, and I've got tons of fish catches coming on this swim bait right here later on in this video. Now, rounding out my top 5 lures for when it comes to fishing around rocks, I cannot leave out, especially as we get into these late spring and summer months here in Texas, I cannot leave out the top water. This here is a walking bait. I don't know if there's a better topwater lure to cover water and draw fish up out of those deeper rocks, out of that deeper water to come hit a topwater than a walking bait. It just walks back and forth. It has a loud knocking sound, rattling sound, sometimes no sound at all, a silent topwater walking bait for those more pressured bass. But I don't think that a plopper, I don't think that a popper, I don't think that a frog especially, definitely not a frog, are the best lures to go to fish around rocky situations. I have supreme confidence in so many years of experience fishing a topwater walking bait around rocks. I'm usually fishing a topwater walking bait on braided line. I really don't think it matters, even in super clear water, if you're fishing your topwaters on a monofilament. Definitely don't fish topwaters on fluorocarbon because fluorocarbon sinks and will not allow your walking bait to walk as well. It'll kind of drag that nose into the water as you walk it. But especially in clear water around rocks like the lake I have today, long casts are incredibly important, and so I will link the rod that I throw a topwater walking bait on down in the description as always. And of course, make sure you guys are shopping for your tackle using those links in the video description. That helps me out a ton. So these things right here are my top 5 rocky lures. Now, like I mentioned, we got some awesome fish catches coming here at the end of this video. I guarantee this is gonna be like a 20-25 minute video, chocked full of information for you guys. If you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button. I guarantee we're getting close to 200,000. We'll probably reach it by the end of May here in 2021. Super jacked for that. Thank you all so much for watching. It is a pleasure for me to take you guys along my adventures and of course teach you guys everything that I'm learning. I just love that I get to do this for a job. So my name's Tyler. We'll see you guys out on the water. Cool. There's one, big one. That one's actually a big one. That one actually is a big one. Bigger for sure. Hello, 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 hello. Yes! Ha 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 ha. We are on a bite today, folks. We're on a bite today. Look at this thing. Ha ha ha. Look at that fish right there. That's amazing. Oh, it's so cool to see these fish come out of cover and eat this thing. That is fun. Heck to the yeah. Got him. Got him. Is that a big one? That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one. That's a big one. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Ho, ho, ho. Oh, ho, ho. Hello, baby. Hello, baby. Hello, baby. Come on. Come on. She came off that tree near the bank. Don't you jump. Don't you jump. She's barely hooked, so we're going to have to go in and... Well, is she barely hooked? No, she's good. She's good. She's good. She's good. Yes! Ha-ha! That's a stinking 5-pounder. That's a stinking... Well, maybe not a 5, but a 4.5 younder. Man, this is a good day, folks. That's what I'm saying. These fish are shallow. They are getting ready to spawn, if not already spawning. And that's a big one right there. That one's got to be probably 4.1 is my guess. Oh, I was wrong. Wow. 4.42. 4.5 pounder, eh? This is one heck of a time. Let's get a Instagram selfie and let her go. Oh, man, like I told you guys earlier, the irregularities in rocky places oftentimes hold big fish, but it's just a rock bank and then a few laydowns here and there, and that's where these fish are hanging, is on these irregularities. You can catch them going straight down a rock bank, but I think these fish right now are really keying in on the not rock stuff. There's one, another nice one. See, I'm just a fishologist. That's all I am. That's all I am. That's all I am. Oh my gosh, there's another big one with him. There's like 2 of them. Oh, this is good, folks. This is good stuff right here. Good old-fashioned content. Can I catch the second one? Can I catch the second one? How am I gonna do this? How about a wacky rig? How about a wacky rig? How about a wacky rig? I don't know how I'm gonna do this. There he is, there he is, there he is, there he is. Bring him up, bring him up, bring him up. Bring him up, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. Oh, he was so close to eating it. He was so close. The other one's gone. We'll catch this one. Oh, it's a heavy fish, way heavier than I was expecting. This is so much fun. This is so much fun. There's so many fish in here. Public body of water, if you guys are not already aware. Thank you, buddy. That right there is going to be a bite. Should be at least. I told you. Came off that tree. I was literally daydreaming, like, I wonder if a big fish could come off that tree. And guess what? He did. He did. Oh my gosh. This is so cool. I hope y'all could see that. Holy smokes. It's just constant 3-pounders plus, man. This is stinking crazy. Gosh, I don't even think I clicked the last one? I don't know. I might have missed it. Whatever, we'll let it fly. Gee, fish, I literally watched him come off that tree. Holy crap. This ain't even fair for these fish, man. Oh, I know what they're doing. They are on the laydowns on rock banks. Oh, got her, yes! That fish followed me for a while. That was cool. I watched the fish leave that tree and I was like, you gonna eat it? And eventually, he did. Not a big one, just a 2-pounder. Got some cool spots on him though. Got some cool lip action. Thank you, friend. Oh, where'd my clicker go? Literally any tree in the water like this, I either get a fish or a follow. Y'all can see the tree in the water right here. The water, I think, is like 4 feet low right now, which is causing any sort of thing that's still left in the water, one of these irregularities, to be a fish attractor. And the fish are just all sucked right there. I guarantee you could catch them just going down the bank, but I haven't had much success doing that. At least not in the areas that I'm at. So honestly, at this point, it's worth it just to fish pockets that I look in and I see stuff like this. The rest of them are just not worth my time. Got him. There we go. Another nice one on a tree. This guy absolutely choked it. Bring it in. Bring it in. Yes. This is so much fun. I see one on a tree there that followed me out but didn't eat it. This guy followed me out and ate the whole dang thing. Thank you, friend. Uh-oh, we're about to hit a rock. Oh, I've got one. There we go. Ski him on in. Ski her on in. Ski her on in. Yes. Wow. That's a skinny, stinking fish. Ah, that thing's like a piece of bread. That's a bread fish right there. Thank you, friend, though. You're helping to prove my point.